After the divorce, I was surprised when my ex-husband brought the child and asked to remarry me. I 33 female and my husband, Jack, is 35. In the early years of my marriage, we were together for 5 years but had no children. After my husband, Jack, and I went for a checkup, we found out that the issue was with me. Jack never blamed me. He was always gentle, comforting, and encouraging. Even when his parents subtly suggested he should divorce me, he ignored their words. I knew how much Jack loved children. His eyes would light up with love whenever he saw them. Because of this, I felt even more guilty towards him. By the 5th year, when we still hadn't had any children, I had lost all hope. Jack's mother's heart condition had worsened, and one day when I was the only one left to care for her, she grabbed my hand with tearful eyes. She begged me to divorce Jack because she knew her time was running out. She wanted to see her grandchild before she passed away. My heart broke and I nodded in agreement with her. Jack's father, who cared deeply for me, just sighed and said, "Not a daughter-in-law, but a daughter in the house." After that day, I asked for a divorce. Jack stood frozen, looking at me. He told me not to make things harder for him, as he was already exhausted. I knew it was because he was dealing with work troubles and his mother's illness. That was why I asked for a divorce at that moment, knowing he would agree. My goal was to hurt him enough so that he would let go of me. And I succeeded. We got divorced. A year after our divorce, I heard that Jack's mother had recovered, and she was looking for a new wife for her son. I swallowed my tears, trying to move on with my lonely life. I hoped that Jack would find a real family with someone else, and that he would be happier than I was. I cut off all contact and tried to hide away because I still loved Jack. 3 years after the divorce, I was surprised to receive a call from my ex-husband, Jack. He asked where I was and said he wanted to meet me. When I refused, he said he wanted to invite me to his wedding. I was speechless but agreed to meet him. When I opened the door, I was shocked to see him holding a little boy, no older than 3 years old. I asked if the child was his, and he calmly replied that it was his son. I forced a smile, thinking he had a child before getting married. Had he found someone else just months after we separated? But what Jack said next left me completely stunned. He told me that he wanted to remarry me because the child's mother had passed away. He had come to invite me to marry him for the 2nd time. I looked at him intently and told him I needed time to think. I still loved Jack so much and was willing to raise his child to be with him. 3 days later, I agreed to get back together with Jack. His mother still wasn't happy with me, but now she was more focused on her grandson. Everything happened as I expected. I loved Jack's son as my own, and we were happy again just like before. Then one day, I discovered an unbelievable truth. It was the day Jack's son was sick and needed a blood transfusion. Afterward, I found out that Jack wasn't the biological father of the child. He had a different blood type, and DNA tests confirmed that the child wasn't his. Jack immediately tore up the papers. Later, Jack explained that the child's parents were his close friends from college, who had died in an accident over 200 miles from home. The child was left orphaned, and since no one wanted to adopt him, Jack took him in. He had told everyone that the child was his own. His mother had no idea and thought Jack had paid someone to carry a child for him. That was why she was so happy. I was speechless and cried as Jack told me everything. It turned out that he hadn't been with anyone else after we separated. It turned out that he didn't care about having his own child. He just wanted to live happily with me. I felt incredibly lucky to have married a man who loved me so sincerely. We raised the child together with love from both sides of the family. 11 years later, I became pregnant but had complications and had to stay in the hospital. Jack's hair had turned gray, but he still tried to hold back his joy as he said to me, "Your health is the most important. We already have a son, there's no need to push." I was determined to keep the child, even though he was born prematurely. The little boy looked so much like Jack, it was as if he were a clone of him. His grandmother said, "The first child has the recessive genes from my side, but this one has the dominant genes from Jack's side, just like him." Our eldest son was 15 years old and was very attached to his little brother, so both Jack's mother and my husband helped care for him while I rested and nursed the baby. At 10 months, I found out I was pregnant again. and Jack was worried about my health. His mother also expressed concern, fearing for my safety. They didn't want me to keep the pregnancy. I visited Dr. Harris, who had taken care of me during my first pregnancy. After examining me, the doctor advised me to follow the hospital's nutritional guidelines. Seeing how determined I was to have a daughter, Jack agreed to let me care for our youngest while he focused on his work. Jack said that his career could slow down, but my health and well-being were more important.